This meeting is being recorded by the Ways and Means Committee and WebEx, as well as GCTV. If anyone else present is doing the same, please notify me at this time. Not seeing any. Councillor Bottomley, would you do us the honor of taking the roll?
Yes, so I'll start with myself, Councillor Bottomley, I'm here. Councillor Disorder.
I'm here.
There you go.
Excellent. Councillor Elmer.
Here.
Councillor Forgy.
Here.
Councillor Wheeler.
I'm here.
Excellent.
And so we have a quorum. We will move to our first item of business, which is approval of the minutes from our July 15th, 2020 meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Elmer.
Is there a second?
Second. Forgy.
Moved by Councillor Elmer, seconded by Councillor Forgy. Is there discussion on the minutes? I did not find anything. Everything looked good to me. So, seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? The minutes pass unanimously. We have no public hearings, so we will move on to page 5 for our first order of business to repurpose $180,000 from the Maplebrook culvert. And I'm scrolling here. I'll read this one. I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council approves repurposing in the amount of $180,000 of previously authorized for repair of the Maplebrook culvert for I&I, inflow and infiltration, evaluation and repairs. And that is account 401-74990.5843. And it leaves it shows on your page that there's a balance in the fund of $204,297.65. That said, is there a second?
Second. Forgy.
Okay, moved by Councillor Wheeler and seconded by Councillor Forgy. Is there discussion on the repurpose? Maybe I will throw this to Director Warner to start, and then we'll take questions. Although we should be familiar with it by now.
Yes, I'll try not to use the word I&I over and over, inflow and infiltration with our sewer system. This is the last part of the consent order that snuck in right before it got signed by both the city and DEP. It was a third round of evaluations that DEP required from the initial consent order way back in 2016. So with the timeline of the consent order and what's due and the 40 pages of different documents and tasks that we need to do with repairs and evaluation, this kind of fell in between to where next spring is running a little late to get the consultant firm and the contractor in to do the work to meet the timeline on the consent order. It would be cutting it way too close for my liking. I got to be honest with you. So I decided to try and repurpose this $180,000. Now that we have the company in the city finishing up phase 2, we can roll right into the phase 3 and we're done with our evaluation process, which will give us the opportunity to really dig into the nuts and bolts of repairing. We review these reports that are coming in, and so we can go after the heaviest or the worst inflow and infiltration to begin with and start knocking these numbers down going into the sewer plant. So like I said, this is the last phase of the evaluation, and then we go into the further steps. The company, I just met with the company today, Wright Pierce. Phase 2 is finishing up. Phase 1, we've got the full report, but we want the September to phase 2 so we can really put a good, solid project together on the $1 million that was appropriated to, again, not to be repetitive, put a hard hit on our inflow and infiltration going into the plant. So this would roll right out and we're done with our evaluations and we can submit all the reports to DEP and And honestly, the department has worked really hard, and Wright Pierce has worked really hard. We've come a long ways in a year to know what we got for problems out there. There's a lot of little ones that add up to a lot of water, so they're hard to pin down. I think, Councilor Wheeler, I showed you a picture one night of a meeting that we found a massive cabin under Mill Street, right in the travel lane. That was a major source of I&I, a broken pipe. I don't want to be too long-winded. We've talked about it a lot, but that's also kind of an update of where we're at. We're in a good place, and even regardless of COVID, we've been working away at this, and it's a great opportunity to put this part of it to rest so we can move on.
Thanks for the summary, Director. Counselors, do you have any questions for Marlo? Okay, maybe not. I know, yeah, this is not the first you've heard of I&I, and I think the sooner we can get the evaluations finished and move on to fixing the issues, I think the better. So, one last chance for questions.
Well, I'll ask the obvious one. What happens to the work that was supposed to be done on the culvert? My understanding is that it looked like it was worse than it turned out to be, and it can wait. Is that the answer?
Well, I think, the Maplebrook Culvert runs, it's not just in the Riddell Street area. It starts in the area of Lincoln Street and runs all the way to Coleraine Street to the Green River. So that's the Maplebrook Culvert throughout the whole city. The only significant piece of the Maplebrook Culvert right now is it was built 80, 90 years ago. We obviously get heavier rains than we got 80 or 90 years ago. So to update or upgrade one small section with a larger culvert in the middle really serves no purpose at this point in time. We inspect that annually. We actually walk most of it with an oxygen tank, and somebody goes down and inspects in this spring. And thank you, Councilor Elmer, for pointing out the typo in my memo. Currently, there's no obvious deficiencies that we need to address immediately in the Maplebrook Culvert. I guess that's what I was getting at in my memo. So I saw this as an opportunity to, the 2-horse race with the I&I to go ahead and put this towards I&I, which I think is a much larger priority for the city right now with the consent order.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so unless there's any further questions, let's see, do we have everyone on video? We have everyone on video here, so by show of hands, all those in favor of the appropriation, raise your hand. I see 5 hands. Opposed? Abstain? It passes unanimously. Thank you, Director Warner. Yes,
one
go
quick
ahead.
question. There wasn't many questions. I'm guessing everyone read that 40-page consent order, so all their answers were.
That's where I got my fun today. All right, thanks. Okay, and speaking of that 40-page consent order, we're now going to skip all the way past it to page 43. I'll give us a minute here in your packet. And I'll read this one as well. I move that the City Council approve a 5-year contract extension for the lease of the premises at 284 Main Street, Greenfield, Mass., location of the Veterans Service Office, between the City of Greenfield and Holyoke Property Management, LLC. Is there a second?
So moved. So seconded. Elmer.
All right, I'm sorry, everything froze there for me for a minute.
I'll second it, Elmer.
Seconded by Councilor Elmer. Thank you. So we'll open this up for discussion. I'll turn it over to Director Letourneau first to just give us a brief summary for anyone who's not familiar with this yet.
Yep. Hi, everybody. I want to make sure you all got my memo that I sent out after the fact. So that kind of summarizes some of the rationale behind extending this at this time. I mean, honestly, the impetus for this was the air conditioning situation. So the HVAC system in the Veteran Service Office failed during the heat wave in July. And so they started, talking about ways to fix it, and that's where the discussions came up for the lease extension. The current lease runs till 2022, and in that lease is a fixed rent price that was negotiated previously. And in that lease also, the city was responsible for basically everything inside the office, with the building and structure outside being the purview of the landlord. So this lease extension, they'll give us, the landlord is willing to pay half up to $5,000 for it looks like a new HVAC system is needed. And in exchange for that, we would extend the lease. They are asking for a pay increase of that lease starting in 2022. So after negotiations, we decided on the 3% per year, and I gave some information just to do some homework about what would be a fair price. And it looks like we're still end up below market rent for our area. And I gave a couple other little things about some details I got from the director of the Veteran Services that were part of the Upper Pioneer Valley Veteran Service District. So some of the other towns pay an assessment to be part of it. So our city doesn't pay for all of the services they do, but obviously we're the largest town, and they get quite a bit of traffic in that office. And it's a really good location for veterans because it's right on Main Street, there's parking, and it's near the public transportation route. But I am open to questions from you all, and I can answer them.
Okay, who has questions? Councilor DeSorger?
Can you tell me when this is really not part of the contract, but I have a point to the question. Do you know when Holyoke Property Management LLC bought it from 278 to 302 Main Street LLC, which is what it says owns it? Do you know how long ago that was?
I don't know right off the top of my head. I do remember that it was.
I can actually, sorry to interrupt, but I can kind of answer this because Councilor Forgy had a question earlier today about taxes, and so I had a little back and forth with Kelly Varner, and I also, have met Tim Grader. So my understanding is 278-302 Main Street is a real estate holding company.
Yeah.
Holyoke Property Management is they're affiliated. So Holyoke Property Management is run by Tim Grader, and 278-302 Main is, I believe, run by Tim Grader. So they, from my understanding, are affiliated.
Yeah.
Follow up?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I read through the lease, and I did a little research about what it costs per square footage. I was okay with the lease. I think that we need to look at our assessment of that. That's my little comment. It was purchased. It's a very important comment because it was, for what it was bought, we were only assessing it for 68% of the purchase price. Just so you know. And it was purchased in 2016. I kind of thought that was a takeover. I sort of get how it goes, and that was something everybody has been promising us for years that they're going to do. And it somehow I gets done a lot faster than that. That's it.
Yeah, that's noted. I think I was going to guess 2016. That sounds about right. And the negotiations for this particular lease have been directly with Tim Grader. But the assessment of properties like this change hands. It is a good time to put a bug in the ear of the assessor.
Sure is.
And just a brief follow-up, even though it's a little off topic to what Councilor DeSorger just said. There was the request last meeting to invite someone from the assessor's office in, and there was very little availability because it's August and a lot of people are on vacation. But we intend to extend that invitation for September, and so hopefully we can have that conversation. So, any Counselor Director Gilman?
I just want to make one comment that will be good to clarify when we have that meeting, but I believe there's a limit that you can go up in 1 year anyway, regardless of how much more an assessment is. So I think it's 10%, but we can find that all out in September.
Yeah, thank you, Director Gilman. That was a good point. Counselor Forgy, I believe, has a question, and then we'll come back to you, Counselor DeSorger.
Yeah, I want to know, who knows if the taxes on that property are currently paid and up to date?
So what I heard back from Treasurer Varner was that they are. I didn't have her chase down all the properties that 278-302 own, but that one is certainly up to date.
Thank you.
This is Director Niadlik. He did pay in full. He, in fact, had to get a rebate back from the town because he overpaid.
Oh, thank you, Director. That's the type of landlord we like to see. Any more questions for either of the directors? Councilor Bottomley.
Yeah, I did have a question because I feel like, not to say this amount isn't appropriate, but it does feel like we're living in extraordinary times. So I was a little surprised to see a 3% increase for 5 years, considering, we're probably going to be going through some pretty difficult times and are expecting reductions in state funding. And I think there's probably, I'm guessing there would most likely be cuts across the city. So I'm just curious as to why there doesn't seem to be a recognition of that condition.
Yeah.
Or maybe there was in your discussion. I don't know.
And I believe there was in our discussion. This is, again, like I said, moving would be costly. Having a surprise increase in the rent amount at the end of 2022 would be much more devastating. This is something that it'll be a known number that we can budget into. And it's a huge service to our area. So I think the fact that we are coming out at the end of 7 years from now, still below our current market value, is going to be a small step. While it is an increase from now, it is a step in the right direction.
I have a question just to clarify. Am I correct that without the renegotiation of this lease, that the Veteran Service Office would have to absorb the entire cost of the HVAC unit?
That's correct. And the savings there is the amount that we would save. Let me say how to phrase this. It's more than the rent increase. The amount we're getting back from the landlord towards the HVAC is more than the entire rent increase over the additional 5 years.
Got it. Thank you. Other questions from councilors? I have a question for Director Niadlik, and I'm sorry if I just totally botched your name. Would you say that Veteran Services is happy in this location?
Yes, it's a fantastic location because a lot of our clients either don't have cars, so they're coming from the bus station, or they have legal issues, so they're within walking distance of the court and the housing court. So for us, it's been a great location. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Obviously, we're just voting to make a recommendation. And technically, we're approving the length of the lease, not the terms. But of course, we go over the details of the terms because it would not make sense to vote on the length if we did not know the terms. So, any more questions? Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any. So, all those in favor of the lease extension for the Veteran Services Office, raise your hand. And I am seeing 4 hands. Is this correct? All those in favor? Opposed? 1 opposed. Abstain? It passes by majority, 4 positive and 1 opposed. All right. Thank you, everyone. Jumping back to the top, we don't, that's it for motions and orders. We have no discussion. Other business? Does anyone have any other business this evening? Okay. Oh, Councillor DeSorger. Yeah. Oh, whoops, you're on mute. Start over, Councillor DeSorger. Thank you.
Yes, can't talk when you're on mute. While Director Gilman is on with us, our capital, all of the things that we assigned for capital projects that we voted on, has everybody started their using that money for this year? How is that going?
Some have, some haven't. Some things like Director Warner has started a few of his because of the nature of the particular item. I did ask folks to hold off if they could from a cash flow perspective. But we actually are doing okay cash flow wise. But they have started some, not all. I know Marlo has started the Mini Excavator. There was something else you just put through. What was that? You're better at the DPW projects than I.
If you want me to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the Mini Excavator was off the state bid list. That's been working out in the field for about 2.5 weeks. Thank you very much. Couldn't wait to see the backhoe go on that trailer. So the road treatment truck has been put on order. We should see that in November because they have to build it to our specs. Traffic improvement, we were just waiting to get some additional costs in. We had to procure a bunch of those items. We're in the process of building the bid docs for the dredging of the Glen. And I already touched on the inflow and infiltration. We'll build on some lining and whatnot or construction projects once we review those evaluations. I feel like I'm missing a couple of things. We've been very busy, but I think that is most of it for now.
One of the things I can tell you about fire is that both their vehicles, they take a year to even make. So we're not even looking for a payment, probably, I wouldn't even say 22. I would almost say 23 before we have to make a payment. Police have started on their mobile message board. I haven't gotten anything from the school department on any of their capital. Other than that, if folks could wait, I asked them to wait.
We have a question from Councillor Forgy, I believe.
I would like to switch places with Councillor DeSorga, because she's asking for a follow-up.
That's right. Councillor DeSorger.
Thank you, Councillor Forgy. I just wondered, had we bonded for all of those?
No, you
everything
cannot.
That we.
Sorry, continue, please.
Have we bonded for all of the things for the capital projects, although you'd asked people to wait?
No, you cannot bond till you've spent the money. So what you do in the interim is if you spend some money, you take out short-term notes. And then when the projects are complete and it makes sense to bond, because it is somewhat expensive to bond. You group them all together and you bond. So we have not bonded for any of these. For the recent capital project program.
But we have bonded for the heating system at Green River, correct?
No, we've taken out short-term notes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's all done.
Okay, thank you, Councilor DeSorger. Councilor Forgy, did you still have a question?
I do, thank you. This is for Director Gilman. Hello. Can you just let us know how fiscal year 2020 is closing, and what trends are you seeing, and what is happening in the revenue world at this point?
So we actually did pretty well in 20. I was really happy. I think I told you before we had gone over our local receipts, but if you take the total revenue budget, aid, local receipts, property taxes, we were actually about 225,000 over. That's a preliminary estimate. They're still reconciling receivables, but there shouldn't be a drastic change. Then from the expenditure side, probably returning near $1 million, which is good news. So
Very good.
we'll see how that goes. But for many other communities, they were struggling more than we have for 20. What I have heard on 21 state aid is that the state has promised to level fund. So basically, between a reduction in Chapter 70 and unrestricted general government, as well as I likely should realistically lower local receipts, I figure by at least 100,000, and that school choice assessment don't have the cherry sheet yet, but it will likely be up 157,000 higher. So all those factors play in. And so overall, I'm advising about $500,000. That was my best case scenario. Believe you me, it was. And so we're now working on making those reductions, and we'll be presenting that to council. Would love to see the cherry sheets first, but I'm getting a little nervous at how close we are to December, which at the end of December, the tax bills have to go out. So, take a couple months of council meetings, and we need to get on what we're proposing for reductions to. But overall, we've done pretty well. I was really shocked to see the level funding guarantee. I was glad to see it. I anticipate a cut in charter school reimbursement. I don't know where that will go. Sometimes they target that on the percentage that they reimburse, but overall, it's still our best case scenario. And so we have made out pretty well, and because our 20 local receipts came in decently, hopefully that trend continues. So I think we're in pretty good shape, considering. Now, hopefully COVID stays away and there's not a big influx or reverting back to earlier in the year. And we're real busy with that too. There's like 4 to 5 different grants on that we're having to manage. And it's not easy. There's a lot to it. So anyway, I hope hope you're pleased by that, because it really
Good news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that?
Can't hear you, Otis.
Talking into the void. Thanks. All right. So if I'm not hearing any more questions for Director Gilman or any other business, then that will do it for this evening. Our next meeting is Tuesday, September 15th at 5:30 via WebEx. I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
So move, 4G.
Moved by 4G. Is there a second?
Seconded, Elmer?
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned at 6:01. Thanks,
Good night.
everyone. See you
Everyone.
tomorrow.
everybody.
Have a great night.